Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Global Lawyer, the podcast of the São Paulo Lawyers Institute that is designed to foster a friendly environment where lawyers from different jurisdictions can come together and engage in insightful discussions. And if you're new here, be sure to watch our previous interviews with legal minds from all around the world. I am Marina, your host. And here we are, episode 15. It's hard to believe we've been having these monthly conversations for over a year now. What a journey it's been. And I couldn't think of a better guest to mark this moment than Gabriela Menna Scanlon, someone who embodies what it means to be a truly global lawyer. She is a dual qualified Brazilian and American lawyer, specialist in asset tracing and judgment enforcement. This is really interesting, and I can't wait until she tells us everything about that. She began her career in Brazil. She earned a master's degree in banking, corporate finance, and securities law from the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School, and went on to practice at top-tier firms in the US, including Kober and Kim and Paul Hastings. She also served as a special assistant US attorney at the Department of Justice before founding her own practice in Washington, D.C. And if I'm telling something wrong, Gabriela, please let me know. She is also a member of the board of directors of the Hispanic National Bar Foundation, and she has been a pioneer in building bridges between Brazilian clients and US courts in high-stakes cross-border cases. But beyond her remarkable professional path, she has an inspiring personal story, one that shows courage, resilience, and a restless curiosity for new challenges. So today we'll explore not only her career and practice, but also the lessons she learned navigating the US legal world as a Latin American woman and the mindset required to thrive in a cross-border legal environment. Gabriela, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and for being here with us.
Thank you, Marina. Oh my God, it is not a pleasure. It is such an honor to be here at Global Lawyer, and especially episode 15. Well, you almost made me cry. I confess that I can be a little bit emotional when people speak about me. And I am very grateful that you spoke highly of me. So thank you very much for those kind and generous words. Again, truly an honor to be here and connecting with other professionals, legal professionals, but also, as you mentioned, being a bridge, but giving examples or talking a little bit about my life and inspiring new talents. Usually I get called or I get cold called by a lot of different students in Brazil and elsewhere who see my path, and their first question is, how did you get there? So today I will be able to explain a little bit of how I got here, but most importantly, inspire others who also want to have a career in international law or a career outside their own jurisdictions. How did you get there? But again, congratulations on your amazing podcast. This is a unique podcast, especially for professionals, legal professionals in the Brazilian market and in the South American market. Being able to host this in English is such a plus, because I understand that even though we are neighbors with a lot of different countries, they speak Spanish, and it's very curious how one can understand Spanish, but the contrary doesn't happen necessarily, so they don't understand Portuguese. And I think having this in English is such a plus, and congratulations for this amazing initiative, and it's such a success. And I couldn't be more happy and honored to be here speaking a little bit about my life and path.
Yes, definitely an inspiring one. And okay, let's start with your early choices. You started your career in Brazil And okay, you graduated from Fundação Getúlio Vargas, if I'm not mistaken, and then you pursued an LLM at Penn Carey Law with a focus on banking, corporate, and securities law. Now, looking back, what were the key factors that pushed you to take the leap into the US market? And how did those early decisions shape the way you practice law today?
Sure. Very interesting question. And I will start by saying I had a very unorthodox legal education. My class was the second class to graduate at FGV, meaning we had this high pressure of being the best and the most elite lawyers in the market, right? At the time, the founder of the school, Professor Osvaldo Matos Filho, a very high regarded attorney and skilled academic, he envisioned this program, like this baby program of how can I create the best lawyer one can be. But he inspired his model, and this is my opinion, right, in an American model. He studied at Harvard. He practiced securities law. He was one of the pioneers in this type of field in Brazil. So the securities law market or M&A or corporate world can be very similar, right, in different countries and different legal systems. Brazil has a civil law system, and the United States has a common law system, meaning the way you learn law in the United States, it's completely different the way you learn law in Brazil. So what he did was experiment, right, in this new baits. How am I going to turn them into the best lawyers they could be? But I believe in the American model, so I want to test them in this American model. And it was very interesting because when I started studying for the admissions exam at FGV, it was way different than studying from any other admissions exam. You had to connect arts with books, with Pollock, with, an author that you've never read before. And you're like, who are these people? Why am I doing this? And I will never forget that as part of the second stage of the admissions process as FGV, you had to do an oral presentation. And
wow,
that is so interesting because I didn't know I wanted to become a lawyer until the very last year of high school. In fact, my parents looked at me when I told them that I was going to become a lawyer, and they say, "What? You don't like reading? How can you become a lawyer? That's, it cannot be." Well, just caveat, I love reading newspapers. I love reading. Since I was a child, I would voraciously read all newspapers because my grandfather and my father every single day would stack the newspapers and read them. So that was the type of reading I was interested in, like history, but not science or like fictitious books. No, I was not into those. So for me, it was kind of a pain to go through all like the Brazilian classics and read them all because I love reading other types of books, right?
Yes.
So I wanted to become an engineer and I wanted to work for Mercedes or BMW. I had this.
Oh my God.
I went to learn German and my parents were like, this is so weird. My father was an engineer. My mom was a businesswoman. So I had this culture of like seeing my parents travel for work a lot. And that inspired me to become independent, right? And I recall that the reason why I chose law was I did a vocational test at the very senior year of high school. And the two options that were given for me, the best options based on the choices that I crossed were either a judge, becoming a judge, or becoming a tourist agent. I'm like, what? Okay.
Oh my.
I'll go with the judge. So in fact, I wanted to become a judge for a long time, but then I ended up being a prosecutor. But that being said, I really had an unorthodox legal training because I picked the university that I thought was at the time the most different, the most challenging, and also something that I did not know what could I expect, because there were no lawyers graduating from FGV. I was the second class, we were Bates. So this sounds so interesting and fun to explore. And it was the best choice of my life. My very first year, I learned how much I loved reading. And I was focusing on wrong books. I love legal theory. I would read Kelsing. I would read Alf Ross. We had Professor Ronaldo Porto Macedo Jr., who was, oh my God, my idol, right? We had our history, legal history professor, also Professor Reinaldo from USP, right? So they're very traditional, they're very academic, traditional paths, but you're learning it in a different way. So every single day we would have to read hundreds of pages. And I believe, and now that I studied in the United States, I am married to a man who's also a lawyer in the United States and who went through Columbia and Harvard here and went through that path. And you see how that immersion or that full-time immersion is so important in a lawyer's life. You see that sometimes lawyers, young lawyers, when they start going to law school, their very first day of law school is their very first day as an intern in a law firm, right? And it's hard for you to coincide both, because I understand you need to work, but that precious moment when you leave high school and it's your opportunity to focus, I think that FGV did an amazing job in forcing us that 3 years you will only study. So when I say unorthodox, I say unorthodox because of the Socratic method, because you had to step up, and it's not the professor just regurgitating every single word from the book.
The passive learning method, when you are passively listening and taking notes and that's it. No, you are actively there. You must be active in this learning process.
That because at the time we were 50 students. So it's
wow.
such a tiny environment. And again, you're a bait. They don't know what is going to come out of it.
Yeah.
They're training you and pressuring you to become the best. So if you don't want to participate in my class, you're going to be outside. Like there is no, you have to participate. You have to express your thoughts. And it's not enough, again, and I was used to, and that was very interesting for me because I went to Colégio Vértice, and it was an education of, I do appreciate they're an amazing school, fantastic, but it's not for everyone. So my 3 years of high school, and I tell my daughters this, my 3 years of the high school, they were like, prepare to learn how to take tests and not prepare to learn how to become a thinker or a human.
To think critically.
Any other sort of social relationship that you could have, because you would sit down, and it takes training, because today, if we try to sit down 4 hours for an exam, oh my God, the level of attention span. So I came from a very traditional type of study, meaning you read the books, you do the exercise, you sit quiet in your classroom, to a method that I had to force myself to get out of my comfort zone. And I've always loved talking and speaking. FGV was the perfect place for me because you have to talk all the time, but you have to talk after thinking. And I think that this was very important for me to practice in the US, because here in the United States, on your first day of law school, no matter if you're an LLM or if you are a JD, the very first thing you learn is the CREAC method. You start with conclusion, rule, explanation, application, conclusion, right? So you start, and if I have an oral argument, or if I am representing a client in court, you start with the message that you want to relay. You don't start with, in accordance with F, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. No. You have to express your thoughts very in a linear way, but you have to tell them right at first. And I feel that that's when I talk about the differences in legal systems. So we were trained with a mindset of an American legal system, right? we had all these very interesting subjects or even literature that you read from Ulysses Unbinded about the American Constitution or about civil procedure in the United States. And we were not trained, for example, 5 years of labor law. No, like in fact, we had a very good training in, you know, criminal law, civil law, but they were always with the mindset of like, think creative, think critically. And I think that's what helped me very much in the United States. But I'm sorry, I'm giving you a very long answer to
No, it's setting the stage for us here, because this is going to be the basis for all the rest, everything else that we're going to discuss. Go ahead.
For these 3 years, right? Totally immersed. And then you get a taste of what it is to go to the legal market and be an intern in a law firm. Well, throughout my first year, I did some sort of summer internships in different places. But again, in 15 days, you cannot experience what it is to be in a firm, right? You can't.
Yeah.
So my very first internship was at Sherman & Sterling, an American firm. I was one of the first Brazilians, like non-American legal assistants, to be hired to work there. And I recall that everything matched my profile. Aside of being a very fancy building with a very fancy office, you know, the idea of being in an American firm was something like, oh my God, right?
like a dream.
Dream. So there were American partners, but you also had foreign lawyers, Brazilian lawyers who were trained in the United States, who passed the bar and were working there, right, as an associate. So you work in a big firm with a big firm structure, but you're in a tiny firm. So in São Paulo, at the time, there were like 10 associates, I would say. But Sherman & Sterling is an institution today. I think they're Allen & Overy, Sherman & Sterling, but they're an institution with like thousands of lawyers.
Yeah, it's like a true company.
True company. So you would step in and you would have a word processing department. Oh my God, you have a document, you have any issues, called word processing. They're going to log
Wow.
and they're going to...
Oh, this is, yeah, you don't have it here.
You know, you have a librarian who you could call and ask for any sort of, you know, treaty that you want, anything. You have access to case law through Westlaw, through LexisNexis, and it's very different the way we access law in Brazil. So all of those tools and everything together it was really a dream come true. I mean, no one can imagine what it is to work in an American firm until you work in an American firm.
Yes, I believe so.
High tech, high power, high this and that. And at the time, I was working with capital markets, and I did not know. I mean, I studied capital markets, but in practice, you don't know. You're going to be drafting disclosure documents. So what should be looking at? Should be doing due diligence and this type of due diligence, and then circle ups, backups, and this and that. So for me, it was too much practical and not academic. And that's when I confronted, what do I want for myself? Do I want, because American law, it's very practical. Here, if you get a complaint, you have a limit of 25 pages and you have to express whatever you want in those pages. Here, it's not in accordance with F, Y, and Z. Here is, these are my words, I cite case law, that's it. So it's very practical, right?
Yes, and this matches precisely the method, the university, and how you learn law. The active learning method is precisely what it takes to practice successfully there. I mean, there in the US.
Yes, and then so again, in corporate law, you speak sort of the same language, right? So securities, if you're whatever, a company's going public, right? A Brazilian firm and a US firm, they work together and it's kind of the same. You know, it's very practical. You don't, the disclosure documents, they come in some sort of like a boilerplate language and you're going to fill in the blanks, but you have to understand how the how to process and transactions. But I thought that to me, at that time, after 3 years of fully immersed in academia and reading all of these, amazing, I thought that for me was too practical. And I thought to myself, what am I doing here experiencing American law first and not Brazilian law first, right? Because during my first year of law school, and again, having that immersion with legal theory, I would love to go to Largo São Francisco and just walk around the old bookshops and buy old books and old treaties. And I love that. I love being in court and listening to oral arguments. So I always had that court call of some sort of like court appealing. I want to become a litigator. I want to have more involvement with court, but I don't know how. So I've always wanted to do that. And I thought that capital markets or that really practicality, maybe it was not my fit, right? But I love the glamour of an American law firm. Okay, then I thought to myself, maybe I should experience something new. And I went to a very large Brazilian law firm and was an intern there for another, whatever, I think a year or 9 months. And I was working with tax law. And for me, it was just like day and night, like water.
Yes, I believe so. Well, tax law. Oh my God.
And even a Brazilian firm compared to an American firm, I'm like, oh boy, this is very interesting. This can be very disorganized. And I also don't know if I fit here. So it was, and then in parallel with what is happening in my professional life, I was young. I was 18, 19. And in my personal life, a lot of things were going on. I got married very young. I had my first daughter when I was 21. And, being a student in a competitive law school and trying to work and trying to just figure everything out together. I remember I was pregnant and it was my 4th year of law school. We would start classes at 7 a.m. and we would go until 1 p.m. and we will have a 1-hour break until we started our internship at 2 p.m. and then went until God knows, at what time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, what am I going to do? Then in the 5th year of law school, I had my first daughter. So I stopped working for 6 months, but I wanted to continue working. And then I found a perfect fit. I went in-house and I started working for a factoring company. And I was the general counsel, even though being very young. This factoring company needed someone to be fully, it could be remote. And this was very, very before the pandemic. It could be remote.
Yeah.
And it would be managing all lawsuits, all civil lawsuits in the countryside of Brazil because they were just outside of São Paulo. And that's when I found out how much I loved litigation.
Litigation, precisely.
And I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. Oh my God, I love this. I loved, to write the complaints. I love the fight. I love being in court. I love not the civil procedure model of Brazilian law, but I just love everything about this. And I think I want to do litigation. I really do. And in the meantime, in a short span, I got pregnant with my second daughter. And again, my first daughter was only 5 months when I got pregnant with a second daughter.
Oh my God, Gabby. Oh my God.
Here in the United States.
It's pretty intense, huh?
Very intense. They're considered Irish twins. I couldn't go back to a law firm, but I've always wanted, after the experience, in my mind, I'm like, why not try to go back to a US law firm? And that's when, for me, the call to go back to a US law firm was, in the back of my head.
I see.
You don't fit in this Brazilian civil model of litigation, right? And we were used to watch all suits and all different series. Maybe why not try? And in Brazil, at that time, I'm talking about 2011, 2012, and 13, right? So what's going on at that time? During that time, You have the car wash scheme or the Lava Jato scandal. It's starting to bubble. It's not yet right there. It's not at its peak, but things are starting to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And US law firms in Brazil, they were not focused on litigation at all. Initially, when when Sherman, when Skadden, when big firms started their activities in São Paulo, it was more focused on project finance, infrastructure. You're still talking about the Olympics or even the World Cup and potentially a lot of infrastructure projects going on. So the law firms were focused more infrastructure, project finance, securities. You have this boom in the market, Bovespa, amazing, everything. It's, dual listing. Oh God.
Yes, we were beginning our IPOs series of the Brazilian securities market is young, is very
Especially
young.
listing. Why not get money from qualified institutional buyers in the United States? So everything is going on at that time. And I know that I had small children and I couldn't go back to a firm, and especially considering the traffic jam in São Paulo. I live in the north zone of São Paulo. To go to Faria Lima would take me 2 hours. So I'm like, no, I can't do this. So, I love academia. So why not go back to school? So I went back to school. I did mestrado acadêmico, an academics master's at FGV. And I focused on the factoring contracts. And it was very interesting because at the time, no one was really writing about factoring contracts.
And you knew all about it?
I knew all about it. And I did this empirical research. So I did a quantitative and qualitative research of case law in São Paulo and in Rio Grande do Sul. Because one is considered to be a more progressive court, and the São Paulo is considered a more traditional court.
Mm-hmm.
So my thesis was about that. And during that time, I remember that when I was at FGV, right, I was right at the cafeteria, I was with my books, and I remember I had one of my babies, I was breastfeeding and doing everything together. And then I looked at the sign, Skadden is hiring. And I'm like, oh my God, they're hiring a legal assistant? Why not? Maybe I should try. And in January 2013, I started working at Skadden. And it was the best decision of my life. I was not in the litigation department. I was in capital markets again. I knew it.
Oh yeah. Oh well, okay. You couldn't choose at that point.
You can choose because
Okay.
everyone is doing capital markets. I was a legal assistant, and I had my former boss, Lauren Bennett, truly American lawyer, New York lawyer. She went to Penn Law also. She went to, I don't remember when she went to college, but she's a true American lawyer, trained. She started as a summer associate at Skadden, and she was, she had the American training, no pain, no gain, and all like, working around the clock. And I remember my very first day, and I fell in love with her because she was so harsh on me. But it's not because, oh my God, it's because it is the way you learn how to become a lawyer in the United States.
Yeah.
It is responsibility. It is being held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
If clients are paying you this amount of money for your hour, you should have eagle's eyes in any typos, in any, so it was the best training one could have because practice makes you perfect. I don't think it makes you perfect, but it makes you better.
Mm-hmm. Which is good enough.
But if I tell you today, Marina, when I work a lot with Brazilian lawyers and I'm not criticizing them, but I think that the lack of, for example, if a document goes out in a big firm in the United States, right? It doesn't matter if you're a first year, second year associate, counsel, partner, anything. And you have like typos.
No, you this is a no-no.
That's very bad, right? Or if you don't review what you send out, or like, so I had a wonderful training and it was harsh. I would, just stay awake a bunch of nights with small children. I didn't see my girls for literally 2.5 years because I wanted that so bad. I wanted it. And at the time, I saw that for me, working in an American law firm would be a wonderful bridge to come to the United States. At that time, I knew that I did not want to work for a Brazilian law firm. Even, personally, there was a lot of turmoil going around my personal life.
We'll get into that in a bit.
I was about to become a single parent. So I'm like, Jesus Christ, how much lawyers make in Brazilian firms? I just can't live with that and, support my children. So I really need to go to an American firm. But it was always my dream and intention to work, litigation. But then long story short, Lava Jato is at this peak, and I'm talking about 2014 and 15. At that time, when I applied for my LLM, I had already had the opportunity to work a little bit with litigators at Skadden with some projects, relating to litigation. And one of my mentors, Richard Aldrich, who was a senior partner at Skadden and is now retired, he told me, he's like, Abby, I have, experience with LLMs or experience, with different foreign lawyers, and I've known them since, the 80s, whatever. I will tell you something. Most lawyers, when they do their LLMs, they don't focus on 1L or like courses that are taught for first or freshmen in law school.
In law school.
1L. They focus on, I'm going to know M&A through the business cycle, or they focus on subjects that are, very interesting, but they don't make you a true American lawyer, right? Even though you think you're an American attorney working here with us, you're not because you're not good, but because you didn't have the training. So it takes you a long time to get used and familiar with the terms, with how we write, how we think. And then he said, I believe you should take civil procedure. I believe you should take contracts. I believe you should take criminal law. You should take torts, of course.
Torts.
A lot of those things, but try to pick subjects that are going to be difficult, but that you can actually learn something about it. And it was the best advice because when I started at Penn in June 2015, I went for the most difficult subject. So all the LLMs were on the other side. I was with the 1Ls. And
my God,
civil procedure with Amy Wax. And if people heard this name, she's very controversial. And yes, I would try to participate in her class and she would shut me down just because I am not American, right? I have an accent or whatever, but she was a wonderful teacher. I cannot say that she didn't thought that civil procedure. She was amazing. I took bankruptcy. I took evidence. I took like all these courses that it really gave me a base, and I saw how not prepared I was to really be an American attorney. And that only lasted for a year, right? And in 1 year, there's just so much you can learn in 1 year. And also, I was alone with my 2 daughters.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask. Oh, okay, go ahead, because, this would...
How I ended up here. And then after that, after the LLM, I really knew that I did not want to go back to Brazil. So I wanted to...
Oh, this is important. Yeah, this is when you decided.
I did not want to go back to Brazil. I wanted to stay. And at that point, Dilma was impeached. A shakeup in all the legal market. So usually LLMs, they are hired to perform tasks of first-year associates reviewing documents, mostly in a corporate world, right? Not in litigation, because I don't draft like an American at that point. Right? I've been doing this now for 10 years. And to this date, I have to stop and think each sentence that I write. And if I see the first things I've written and now,
it's a huge difference. Oh, this must be rewarding. Oh my.
Very rewarding.
This must be tremendously rewarding.
When I think about my first depositions, when I think about my first cross-examinations, I made mistakes. I mean, I still make a lot of mistakes. And that's why I go to court and I watch, like yesterday, I was watching my husband in court doing a cross-examination, watching his peers do a cross-examination, because that's how you learn. Because experienced trial lawyers in the United States, they're very hard for you to get there, right? Why? Because number one, you don't have a lot of trials. It depends on your practice, but mostly high profile cases, they don't go to trial that much.
Yes, that's true.
You go to
So you have to take every opportunity.
every opportunity. And then, so just to get where I didn't want to work with, I wanted to work with litigation, right? That's what I wanted.
Mhm.
Getting that job was so hard to a point that I don't think I've ever said that in public, but after I got my job, so I got my job offer. So everyone at the LLM, you start in June, and everyone by November they have their job offers, right? That's how it works.
Right.
It was June 2016. I didn't have my job offer after interviewing literally. I had over 85 interviews. Phone,
My God, Gabby.
New York and leave my daughters and with random people. I would tell partners, oh, I'm in New York. And when I was not in New York, to say if they would respond to my emails and just literally like bounce shoulders with them. Hi, you're here. Oh, I'm here too. Really movie things. Everything
Wow.
I did to get a job. And I did not give up. I did not give up. I tried until the very end. And then the way I got my job at Cobra and Kim was the most random way ever.
Okay, tell us.
I was having interviews and I was supposed to potentially be going to Quinn Emanuel in Washington, D.C. because of the Lava Jato scheme operations and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then when I saw on Facebook that one of my colleagues from FGV, she was working in a mediation project for Brumadinho, I think one of the very large incidents that happened. And hey, if you want to become a mediator for, 6 months, you can get paid a lot of money and then you can decide what you want to do next. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go back to Brazil, but at the end of the day, I have 2 daughters and I can't stay here alone. So why not call her? So I called her and she said, you know what? You should talk to a friend of mine who works at Davis Polk. And Marina, I recall that day, it was a Friday afternoon, right? And she was going to do a FaceTime call with me. I had no one to take care of my 2 daughters. They were 4 and 5. So I told them, you guys are going to have a bubble bath because mommy has to have 30 minutes of, private time. I put my kids in a studio, a very small, tiny studios. And my daughters still remember that they used to share this IKEA bed for kids that wouldn't fit a person, but I put both of them there.
Oh my God, Gabby.
And go have a bubble bath. They went to have a bubble bath.
You're going to be there forever.
And then, fine. I'm like, they're fine. At that time, I was 26, 27. They could probably be drowning. And
No.
today,
Gabriela, what a story.
Where am I going? Is there a hospital? Is there this? But at the time, just go have a bubble bath. And then talking to this person, and then very formal conversation. Thank you so much for your time. X, referred me to you. I would, love if you could have any sort of ideas, because that's the other thing. I would never approach people in an aggressive way of hire me.
Mm-hmm.
I would hey, do you have any ideas or any feedback or anything? Because people love talking about themselves, right?
Yes.
Interviewing me, I'm talking about my life. Who cares about my life? We love talking about ourselves. So
these are soft skills, Gabi, and not everyone have it.
So
not everyone has it. Sorry. You're right.
I would talk to people and I would let them talk about how amazing they are and how they experience, because that's the way they could potentially help you.
Yes.
So as I was talking to her, probably within 15 minutes go by, and I know that her attention span is not the best, but momentum going and the conversation going.
Okay, 15 minutes, you said.
I see the bubbles coming out of the door.
Oh my God.
You can ask my daughters, I swear to God, I see the bubbles coming out of the door. And I'm like, and then I see one of my children. I think it was the oldest one because she's super responsible. And the second one, not that much. coming out and saying, mommy, mommy, the bat is like, the bubbles are exploding, you know? And I'm like,
You're in the middle of the thing.
and that was the best thing that happened. Why? Because as a mother and professional, you don't want to have your kids interrupting something, right?
Yes.
Which the person who I was talking to, she was a woman.
Yes.
And that for her, it was such a genuine moment. And I'm like, I am very sorry. I have two daughters. I have no one to take care of them. And I left.
Oh my, oh Gabi, also this is moving.
Being honest, I'm like, I'm sorry. They're having a bubble bath. I don't think the experience is going well. So would you mind just waiting 2 minutes, right? And then I remember
Wow.
the daughter is like next to me in a couch, and she said, you know what? I'm gonna help you.
Oh, this was fantastic. Okay, you genuinely. You opened up, you showed. Oh, this is fantastic. This is a wonderful story. This is amazing, Gabi.
I'm gonna help you. And then her help, she literally connected me to one of her best friends who work at Cobra and Kim. And at the
Mm.
time, I haven't heard about Cobra and Kim. I didn't know the firm, right? And Stephanie Hauser was my boss there, and she was the person who got me my job. And she's like, we're looking for someone from Brazil to be our foreign associate. And I think that you would be a good fit. I interviewed in April. And on June 14, when I got my offer, because every number that would call me from New York, right? I thought it was a job offer. So, and it's funny because I stopped checking my mail after one of the firms that I totally thought that I was getting in. And I call them and they say, hey, you know, I think it's a letter on the mail for you. Is there a letter, right? So after that, I stopped checking my mail because I'm like, I don't have any nerves for this anymore. But every number that called me, and I was in Philadelphia because UPenn is in Philadelphia. So every number out of New York, I thought it was a job offer. Every number. I was so crazy that I'm like, I applied to so many places, whatever. Well, when John Curiel, who is today at the Supreme Court of Florida, when he called me, it was a Friday around 3 p.m. And I see a number of Miami calling me. So I pick up, hi, hello. He's like, hey, Gabby. Hey, Gabriela, my name is John Curiel. I interviewed you and I would love to extend you an offer. I'm like, oh my God. I just started screaming and like crying, and I just kneeled and thank you. And this with him on the phone, and he's like, oh my God.
Are you okay?
Exciting like candidate in years. Welcome to the team and welcome to the firm. And again, it's me being me, right? For me, that was everything in my life. And for me, that was
Wow.
a danger in my life, professionally, personally, everything. And you know, I went on my knees to, you know, I go to I'm Catholic, you know, and I just went on my knees to thank God because it was again a miracle, a miracle. And that's how I ended up at Cobra and Kim, and that's how I ended up in the United States. And from then on, I am here, never leaving. So a very 30-minute answer to your question. But here we
Okay,
go. I promise
but
I'll brief her now. Now that you know.
no problem. No, it was fantastic. This is fascinating, Gabi. This is fascinating because it tells so much about you being open, about your being genuine, and about your strength. And you didn't, you stuck to your plan. You didn't give in. So this is so important because, and this leads me to my next question, because we are now in your time frame. We are now prepared to explore your experience as a special assistant U.S. attorney at the Department of Justice. I understand that you went to Cobra Kim and then you went to Paul Hastings. If you want to talk about that a little bit, it's okay. But I would like to focus then on your experience at the DOJ. So my focus is as how did stepping into the public sector, and especially after private practice in everything that you learned, how did this add to your perspective as a cross-border lawyer? Because now you know you own your own law firm. So next chapter, let's see. I'm all ears.
Oh yeah. So litigation, it's very specific in the United States. And yesterday, when I was in court watching my husband, I saw one of the associates of his firm, and he was, very, very happy because the associates was saying how important it is for him to have the court experience, giving, again, when you're an associate and you're in a big law firm and you have a trial or you have a big case, right? Most of the times when it's criminal, the person who will be handling those cases are former prosecutors. And you don't know why former prosecutors. And at Cobra and Kim, that mentality was very, very, very important. And I know today I know why, right? So so at Cobra and Kim, I learned how important it is for you to have previous government experience. And I didn't know that before. Why? Of course, I couldn't become any sort of government employee because I didn't have a US citizenship. So you can, if you are an international student, and most students ask me this, I would say, hey, if you can be a clerk, I don't think you actually can work for the judiciary, not being a US citizen. However, you can be an assistant clerk, right? If you have money and you can just support yourself here, go be an intern. And that would add up to your resume. Because remember, my husband, for example, and other colleagues who are litigators today, they all clerked for judges. So straight out of law school, you clerk for a judge. You can clerk for a judge later in your career, like when you're a second or third year associate, but usually the clerkships are very, very in high demand.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't clerk because number one, I was not a US citizenship. Number two, I didn't have the money to just
Yes.
work myself here with 2 kids. So I needed a job. But when you go to the litigation world, and Cobra and Kim, Michael Kim is, oh my God, he is brilliant. He thinks a law firm as a business. So it doesn't matter if you're a first year associate, a second year associate, you're part of the team, you're helping, you're doing everything. And I learned how important it was to have government experience. So if you're talking to the government, you need to know how they think, right? And how would you know how they think if you're one of them?
Being there.
So that's why the revolving door in the United States, it's very important. And it's something that we don't see in Brazil. Maybe it's starting now. I know one.
Yes, I would say that.
It's
Maybe
starting,
now.
it's starting now, but for a long time in Brazil, it's like if you become a prosecutor, you're going to become a prosecutor for life. If you're a judge,
Mm-hmm.
you're a judge for life. So
Mm-hmm.
here you have a lot of judges who are former prosecutors. So this
Mm-hmm.
revolving door, it's very, very important. And so I started Cobra and Kim, was wonderful experience, amazing. And of course, learned a lot. And I'm like, oh my God, I know nothing, but I learned a lot, especially drafting, especially legal research. And then I met my husband,
Mm-hmm.
a lawyer there. And he was mostly focused on civil litigation. He did trials, civil litigation trials. And then when we got together, he said, I have something to tell you. I'm like, what? He's like, I'm going to the government. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So he went to join the fraud section, and he was a prosecutor for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me a lot of contact with his peers, right? So because they're their friends, so they would come to my house, I would talk to different prosecutors, and I would understand how do they think, how do they act, and what are they doing. My husband was in trial all the time, and it's just fascinating how much he loved his work and his job. That could not become a reality for me until I became a US citizen at the very end of 2022. At that point, I already had my firm. So I founded my firm after Paul Hastings.
Oh, that's okay.
But no worries. So it's kind of, if you look at my LinkedIn, it's kind of like messed up. So
No,
after
no problem.
Cobra and Kim, I went to Paul Hastings, and it's very different firms, right? Cobra and Kim, you're mostly focused on individual representations. You're mostly focused, and that's where I learned what asset tracing was. That's what I learned what 1782 was. That's where, so everything that I do today is thanks to Cobra and Kim and everything I learned there. I didn't even know those tools existed, right? And I'm like, wow, there is a lot to explore in South America. So why not explore it? Then I went to Paul Hastings, and a wonderful firm, fantastic, but it was not a good fit for me. Why? Because I was working in the FCPA department. It's very corporate. It's very white collar. It's very not a good, like, I don't think I loved what I was doing. And then I got a
Okay.
opportunity. One of my best referral sources, a law firm that I work with the most in Brazil, said, hey, we have the former CEO of Brasking who is in need of legal advice.
Assist the
And
advice.
good addition to the team. And I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? He's like, yeah, Gabby, you're a Brazilian, you speak Portuguese, you speak English, you understand both civil law and common law. And why not join the team? And then, why not roll the dice? And that's January 2021. I was expecting my fourth child, and I was 6 months pregnant, and I rolled the dice, and I left Paul Hastings, and I started my own firm, just right there. And it was the best.
This is amazing, Gabby. This is amazing. An amazing career, an amazing trajectory.
Best decision of my life. I founded my firm, and then since then represented multiple clients, Brazilian clients, Peruvian clients, Argentinian clients, in asset tracing mostly, in whistleblower representation. I was expecting to do more criminal law, but that didn't happen because, I don't know, administration, politically, whatever, different, but I do a lot of civil work, and all of tracing and judgment enforcement, they do have a fraud component. So that's very interesting how I mix, criminal and civil. But
yes, you can work with both. You can, it's not that they overlap, but you can follow up both. It's like a complementary work. I would say meaning you understand how to coordinate both proceedings in civil actions and criminal actions across the different countries. That's
and especially because when clients out of Brazil come to me, oh, I want to file a complaint with, DOJ, that doesn't happen. So here, everything that's criminal, it's taken care by the government. There's no involvement. If you want to become a whistleblower, if you want, it's like you give them the information, they do their job. So there is no, like, in Brazil, there's some sort of criminal proceedings where the victim plays a role, and it's
the initiative. Yeah.
this and this, that is totally different here. So what I do, I get civil tools to help clients with fraud cases coming out of, anywhere in South America. But I use that civil tool. I use federal courts. I use state courts, and I tell them a fraud or it's really an intersection between criminal and civil, but mostly what I do is through civil mechanisms. Of course, you have when you have a client who's arrested, when a client, I had clients who have been arrested for multiple reasons. And then especially when it comes to FCPA charges, then it's different because you're trying to negotiate a plea agreement or you're going to trial. But, mostly my practice is focused.
Oh, you've done that. That's interesting.
And then after I founded my firm, I've always had this, I told my husband and I would joke, like, when you leave the government, I'm going to go to the government. So the moment has come, and I've applied, to multiple places, and it's hard because I don't have trial experience, even though, well, now I do, but even though I had a lot of representations in court, in civil court, right? So you go to court as status conferences, you do a lot of depositions, you handled all, the components of a case, and you have oral argument and you have evidentiary arguments and everything. It's different than you handling a trial, and especially a jury trial, when you have 12 jurors sitting there and watching you, right? The spotlight is on you. So I didn't have that. And most of, the government and the offices in the United States are looking for, they either hire prosecutors who are very young, coming out straight out of law school. So you're going to train that person as a baby prosecutor until, that person
For
works
life. Yeah.
or you have the fraud section or MLARs. It's more, I would say, sophisticated. You're not doing the everyday crime. You're doing like high fraud and you don't go to trial that much. That's why they recruit more from law firms and not expecting you to be as experienced in trials. But still, it's highly competitive because as an LLM, even though today I consider myself, I passed the bar, I'm admitted in different district courts and appellate courts. I've done appellate arguments, even though I've done everything and all of that. I believe there's still a bias when they look my resume and they say, hey, she's an LLM. I do believe that there's still bias, right?
Oh my.
So I interviewed to a bunch of places. I was in a process of potentially joining the fraud section. So my husband left in September and I started a process to join the fraud section. And I was waiting, to be called for interviews and everything. But before that, my husband said, hey, why don't you go to the U.S. Attorney's Office? And they have this Special Assistant United States Attorney program, right? When you are trained to be a prosecutor, local. So it's, even though DC is not a state, it's more considered like state, like a D. And you learn, you're going to do bench trials. And then, while you're in the process of joining the fraud section or any other place, federal, right? So I did that. I prepared myself. I transitioned all my clients at the end of last year because I thought that I was going potentially to the fraud section. And with a new president, we had the hiring freeze. That sort of, impacted my plans. But I had committed to become a Special Assistant United States Attorney, and I did that for 6 months. And it was, again, one of the best decisions of my life. Why? Because what the U.S. Attorney's Office does, it's very different than what the fraud section does. The U.S. Attorney's Office, you prosecute guns and drugs, right? You're prosecuting the guy who is stealing from Target. You're prosecuting the guy who is, assaulting someone on the streets. You're prosecuting, so it's a lot of crime, a lot of volume, but it's not your fancy fraud, right? It's not accountant fraud. And when you go through that office, they have a very specific training how they want you to be. So they especially want to hire very young people, and then they mold them and they have to switch and rotate within the office, and you're going to do homicides and this and that. So it was interesting because I was able to do 7 trials and bench trials. I didn't do any jury trials.
Yeah.
But it gave me a wonderful training of how it is, to be in the government. And when I left, even though it was such a short time, I would say I don't know any other Brazilians who did what I did, even though for a time. And in the future, do I want to go back to the government? Yes, I do, because it's an experience that you can't replicate anywhere. So I sort of shaped my practice to try, like my clients trust, not they trust me more. They're like, oh, okay. I remember that when I was preparing for my first trial, I was so scared. I'm like, Jesus Christ. My heart was like, and even though I was doing a theft too, so someone stole from my Target here and I had to convict him, right? So he stole $300 from Target. And it's a simple trial. So you call an officer as your witness, you call someone, a Target representative as your witness, the whole trial is a trial that it takes 1 day, right? It takes 5 hours. It's not a trial that would take 5 months or
Yes, of course.
So, but still, you're going to do a cross-examination. You're going to do an opening. It's
quite a challenge. It's quite a challenge for, wow.
100%. And I remember that I was so prepared for my first trial that this senior judge was, and I was nervous.
Yes.
I am from, and then it's funny because at that time when I was in court, I'm like, Jesus Christ. You think about it's like when you're getting married or when something very important is happening in your life and you think about everything that happened for you to be there. I'm thinking like, oh my God, I've come a long way. I'm a Brazilian attorney. I passed the bar, I have all this admission, and now I am representing the United States on my very first trial. Yes,
This is yeah.
wow. So I step in and I printed this huge pictures. No one does that, but I wanted to like impress. And I did this heated opening
Wow, opening statements.
trial. At the end of the trial, I went to ask the judge for feedback. I'm like, listen, it's my first trial, Your Honor. I would like to know, things that I could improve, or what do you think? He's like, this is a misdemeanor trial. I just wanted to like remind you of that. You were doing an opening as if you're doing an opening for, a top homicide, with 12 jurors.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I just wanted to train, right? And he's like, you did a very good job. Just letting you know that I remember that my opening was like, he sees it, he wants it, he takes it. So you always get the motive. And the judge was looking at me like,
Are you sure this is okay? Are we on the same page? Yeah.
Oh, but the whole experience was amazing. And what did
Fantastic.
I learned that I love being in a courtroom, right? So this type of crimes, you're in a courtroom every single day as a prosecutor. Every day you're in a courtroom, every day on calendar.
Mhm.
So I learned that I love doing that. So now I'm applying because I want to be on the opposite side and be in a courtroom every single day representing, the defendants, right?
Mhm.
And then you shape your practice and you find new gaps and new opportunities that you didn't think were possible before. And they were like, wow, this is possible. This is interesting. This is funny, So here I am today.
Oh, this is amazing, Gabby. This is just amazing. And I think with okay, your resilience and your willingness to face the challenges and to be there for the challenge and for the new opportunities. So you don't see the dark side, the bad side of things. You prepare yourself because it's kind of it feels like that it's worthwhile. So, okay, I should be here. I am here. And okay, let's go. And this is fantastic. I have other questions here for you, but I think you've covered most of them. Let me just see one. Yes, the partnerships between you when you work with. I was going to stress your curious mind and your diverse interests, but I believe you have covered that perfectly. The cross-border practice and partnership, the relationship between you and your clients here in Brazil, and the partnerships between you and the big law firms here in high-stakes cases. Just let us know from your perspective what makes a partnership between US and Brazilian lawyers really work in practice. And from at this point, by knowing you, I believe that you handle this with no problem, no effortlessly. And but what are the pitfalls lawyers on both sides should avoid? Because this is important for our audience here.
Oh, for sure. Well, I worked as of today, I would say, with very large firms in Brazil, but with small firms in Brazil, with Brazilian lawyers in general, right? And of course, for me, it's easy because I speak the language, I know the code. I'm not a master in criminal law in Brazil, but I studied that, so I kind of have a vague sense of how things work, right? So for me, when I'm talking to a Brazilian lawyer, I'm speaking in Portuguese about the US legal system, and I explain everything in Portuguese. I explain how the US legal system works in Portuguese. What is a motion to dismiss? What the heck does that mean? what are the main pressure points in a civil case? Because sometimes Brazilian clients or even Brazilian lawyers, they come to me and they're like, okay, let's file a complaint. I'm like, let me tell you that filing a complaint here is not the same thing as filing a complaint or sending a notificação. Oh my God,
Uh-huh.
a notificação. I'm like, well, demand letters here don't actually work because no one will get impressed or threatened by that. You threaten someone in the United States by filing a lawsuit, but you actually have to file a lawsuit that you know it's going to survive a motion to dismiss, because if it's not, then what's the point of doing that, right?
Yeah, this threshold, the motion to dismiss, can you tell us a bit about that?
So I would say that the majority of the cases that I deal with, the worst, I wouldn't say the worst, but the most difficult point to survive a motion to dismiss, it's when it comes to jurisdiction, right? Because most people think, oh, this is a company that's registered in the United States. Okay, so where were the damages? Where did the damage happen? Where, it's because Brazilians think about the FCPA statute of being this octopus statute that can take any person anywhere around. That doesn't happen with civil cases, right? That doesn't happen because even though you may have a connection with the district, right? Let's say Southern District of New York, unless you can specify, unless you can have this nexus of like, where did the action occur? Where did the damage occur? Unless you have those things very, I would say, pretty clear.
Clearly,
Jurisdiction, it's really, I would say the big hurdle. It is the big hurdle. So don't think about, I think that a lot of Brazilian lawyers think about the civil litigation system in the United States as if you would bring a lawsuit and then, yes, soon in 5 months, you're going to be awarded $10 million in damages. That doesn't happen. Those cases are the outliers. The case that the woman burned her mouth with a Starbucks coffee and got awarded $50 million, that doesn't, that is an outlier. So the civil complaints in the United States and the way things work is you file a complaint that's very short, right? If you compare the complaints in Brazil, the initial complaints, you file something that's short and sweet with 1 or 2 or maximum 3 causes of action, and causes of action that you actually know that you can fulfill. Once you do that, right, you can amend your complaint, but you file things fast so you don't lose timing. Maybe you have a statute of limitation issues, or maybe you have but you have to file something, you have to, live momentum.
Yes, and this because everything is pretty much straightforward when it comes, and and this also reflects the practical dimension of the system.
100%. So that's why I tell my clients. Some clients or some, I talk about clients because I usually refer to clients as Brazilian lawyers and also real.
I see. Okay.
But Brazilian lawyers, I think that most of them do have if we talk about restructuring, Chapter 15s, or even now with Section 1782, something that I do, a lot of lawyers have a vague sense, a very good sense of what's going on in the US. They understand the process. And but when it comes to civil litigation, I feel that lawyers know about it, but they don't know, okay, all right, fine, a complaint, but then what does it take to get to discovery? Okay, motion to dismiss, what should I be looking at? Or so again, that's why talking in Portuguese, explaining everything, or giving them some cases or sending them some precedents so they can understand what I'm talking about, that really, I would say, is my secret sauce, right?
Yes.
We have wonderful American lawyers, but again, I am not generalizing because you always have exceptions. When my husband talked to Brazilian clients, I had to educate him. What do Brazilian counsel or Brazilian clients look for? What
need to know what they look for and what they need to know.
They need to know, or what are they expecting? For example, I have a lot of calls when I have a colleague or whatever. They simply explain something about the US legal system to a Brazilian lawyer as if they're talking to me.
Someone who already knows.
There's the motion practice of people. I'm like, dude, he doesn't know what you're saying. Aperta tecla SAP, put like the translator subtitles on, because you need to, oh, sorry. My computer just vanished. Sorry.
No problem, no problem.
Second, I don't know what happened here.
No, just your screen, just to turn on your camera. No problem.
But I'm gonna do it. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Oh, I'm back.
Okay, you're back.
I think that, again, American lawyers, most of them, is what I tell my Brazilian fellows. Eu falou below. You talk to someone, they're already billing their time. 0.1, 0.2, blah, blah, blah.
Falou below.
Don't waste my time, right? They have this thing of like, don't waste my time. Or come to me when you know your issue. Don't come to me to discuss, the scenario. Come with me with an issue so we can resolve it. And I am not like that, because I understand if you are a client and you step into a Brazilian firm today, you're going to have a coffee, you're going to chat about your life, you're going to talk about your kids, and then you're going to get, it's our culture, right?
This is it. Yes, this is precisely what, this is where culture comes into play. And you have to know how to deal with that, because it's your client.
Yeah. So here, I think Brazilian counsel and clients, they feel comfortable with me because I am one of them. Yeah. But I just happen to practice in a different system, right?
Yeah.
But this has also benefited me when I am dealing with opposing counsel in the US. I am calm, I am nice. I usually tend to agree with a lot of extension of times, but when you wanna, sorry for my French, screw me, then I have everything documented, how nice I was with you. Then the judge will decide what the judge will want to do. And when you're upfront with the judge, and when you're upfront with opposing counsel, and when you show your willingness, I wouldn't say, but when you show that you're open, that you've been always open to negotiations, that you were always, that tends to be good for you. So I think that my culture, or the way I am, because I'm from Brazil, happens to help me in my practice in the United States, but it's very different. Again, it's very different here. And again, I don't know how to deal with a Chinese client because I never had one. So I don't know if I go to a meeting with them, if I'm being, oh my God, so again, it's very, very easy for me to deal with South American clients just because I'm one of them.
Yes. And that's what makes all the difference. And for young Brazilian lawyers who may be listening to us right now, Gabi, because this tells a lot about your experience, how you dealt with, it seems like everything you did was on purpose and strategically planned, because you went you made your move from Brazil to the US, and then you pursued, and you also studied here and you had the master's here in Brazil, and then you pursued the LLM in Penn, and your experience in law firms, and then the public sector, and your curious mind, and everything put together shows that it's not about just technical skills or professional skills. It's about, and I'm not talking not talking only just about soft skills. No, I'm talking about how you see your profession, how you see the way you practice, right? So for those young Brazilian lawyers listening today, we can say that borders are thinner, and partnerships, they open doors to international practice, I would say, like never before, right? So if you had to tell them something, what's your message to those who want to build a global career? What mindset, skills, and commitments are, you would say, truly non-negotiable in this journey?
Networking. You have, I mean, I love speaking, right? I love being, I'm a person, my husband loves to be alone. I can't be alone. I want to go out, I want to talk, I want to, it's really, it depends on who you are. But regardless of who you are, I would say that the most successful lawyers that when I see lawyers today, I'm like, wow, oh, wow. You can be a fantastic trial lawyer, but you may not be the lawyer. You may not be the rainmaker at your firm. People ask me, how are you able to get clients to hire you at the beginning, right? I was 33. I was fairly young. I'm not saying that I'm old, but how do you get people to trust you?
Mm-hmm.
Because I am to be trusted. I tell my clients, I am not optimistic. I am not pessimistic. I am realist. I speak in reality. I'm never going to promise you something that I can't deliver. And I don't promise things to people. I will tell you exactly probably what you don't want to hear because that's how I think things work. But aside from that, I feel that today we're in a society that everyone is online all the time. Everyone is on internet, like whatever. And I talk to my girls, I have a 15 and a 14-year-old, and I tell them all the time the importance of face to face, the importance of connections, the importance of writing a letter, the importance about thinking of someone. For example, when I travel, and this is something that I learned with my parents, when I travel, it doesn't matter where I go. I always bring someone to someone, a dear friend, or if a client, when I give presents to clients, I think about what they like. I think about what could make them special. It's not another pen or another notebook, right? You have to think about that person is your client. He is telling you very personal stuff that he doesn't want to share with others, right? So
Sure.
lawyer-client relationship is a trust relationship. And you build trust by getting in touch with people. My very first client in my life at Cobra and Kim was someone who went to the same horseback riding club as I did while I was growing up. I started networking since I was 7 or 8. I love connecting with people. I love inviting people to my house. I love making others feel comfortable because that's how I feel good. That's how I am. But
Mm-hmm.
regardless of where you are, you could be the best technical lawyer, but it really depends on what you are, right? If you're very good, high skilled, and you don't want to have any contact with people, it will come to a point in your life that your skill will be replaced, right? The most successful lawyers I see today are lawyers who can be complete. They're the 360 lawyers, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
in court, you don't need to be amazing. Clients love you because you deliver what you're supposed to do. You're good with the client. You're social. You're always interacting. You're always trying to, and again, this is very important. It's not only about you. When I meet someone, the very first thing that I think is, how can I help this person? How can I help her connect with another? Because the more you connect people, the more they think about you.
Mm-hmm.
Cases, I referred so many cases out, so many clients' cases, and people think of me today because I was able, oh, remember when you connect me with A, B, or C? Well, that
Mm-hmm.
came back and that this. So networking and connecting people, this will pay off.
That's true. Very, very interesting. So, guys, for you who are listening to all of you who are listening to us, for your story, Gabi, is proof that international careers are within reach. If you are willing to embrace the challenge, if you are willing to build strong partnerships to show who you really are and never ever stop learning, not only the technical stuff, but the human side of all of that is involved in relating with the law and with people and the human aspect of all of that. So I couldn't thank you enough for your interview. It was amazing. It was fun. It was really, really inspiring. And thank you very, very much. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. Okay, Gabi, you may say your final.
I just thank you personally for being this amazing role model woman and for
Oh,
starting this initiative. Again, I'm speechless. Uh,
ah,
and congratulating you again on your 15th and your anniversary of the podcast and your 15th episode.
thank
I
you.
just want to say a very last word. No matter how much people criticize me, I love Walt Disney. I'm a big fan. I cry with Disney movies because you know what? If you believe, you will get there.
Yes,
Remember, as Walt Disney said, he went bankrupt so many times. It all
yes.
started with a mouse. So if you believe in yourself,
Yeah,
you're going to get there no matter what. So thank you so much for this opportunity. It was an honor.
thank you. Thank you, my darling. And for you guys, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode, this amazing episode with colleagues who believe like us that practicing law today is about dialogue without borders. Thank you so much, guys. And until next time. Bye bye.